Youorns. Greetings, fellow Watford fans. Omar here, and it's time for the Youorns 10-minute take on Watford 2, Stoke City 0. Watford end a miserable season on a high note with a clean sheet victory. In fact, Watford bookended this miserable season with clean sheet wins. On Monday, August the 1st, 2022, they got a 1-0 victory at home against Sheffield United. And today, Monday, May the 8th, 2023, they get a 2-0 win at home against Stoke City. Two teams beginning with the letter S, two teams with red stripes in their jerseys, and two wins on a Monday and two wins that were clean sheet victories. That is symmetry at the Vic on both occasions. But it's a shame that what happened in between those two wins, well, a completely different story altogether. For Watford, a season that seemed to promise so much at the beginning, but then very quickly became a profound disappointment, an agony, an abomination. And there are much stronger words than that to describe this season. But in this particular game at the Vic, Watford, who were a scattershot in the first half defensively, got their bearings right eventually in this game. Stoke City, they came to play. It wasn't as if they were on the beach. Stoke had a lot of opportunities in the first half, but it was Daniel Bachmann in the Watford goal, who I thought did a very good job, particularly in the first half, with some very strong saves against a Stoke team that were playing all out. In fact, first half was quite open, and Watford had a couple of chances they could not cash in on. There were some good runs down the side by Ryan Andrews, an opportunity for Ismaila Sarr, playing what I expect to be his very last game in a Watford shirt, who had a shot that he should have put into the back of the net in that first half facing the Vicarage Road end. But in the second half, Watford would begin to turn up the screw finally, and a game that devolved into a very boring, lackluster, and pedestrian affair to start the second half began to pick up when Watford head coach for the last time this season, Chris Wilder, took off players and brought two subs on. And he brought on the youth, Arouge, who's going to be leaving at the end of this campaign. He's now going to be out the door. And James Morris, who's going to be a staple of this Watford side, I think, for years to come, came onto the pitch. And within 5 minutes, Watford were up 1-0. In fact, less than that, Watford got their first goal, and a deserved goal. Loser had a really good chance, took a shot at it, and made a nice finish into the bottom right-hand corner of the back of that net owned by Stoke City. Watford up 1-0 in front of the Rookery end, celebrating a goal that was really well worked, and I thought a good finish, good quality from Imran Louza, who I thought was the man of the match today for your Orns, as they got the job done. Now, within a few more moments after that, Keinan Davis, who has really been a disappointment this season in this loan spell, that he, of course, is going to be heading back to Aston Villa very soon. Keinan Davis disappointed tremendously this season, but he didn't disappoint today, as he got on the score sheet as Watford doubled their lead just a few moments later to make it Watford 2 and Stoke City 0. Keinan Davis scored from a similar position on the pitch and in a similar area in the back of the net as Loser did. A nice finish on his weaker right foot, Keinan was, and he shot the ball that found its way into the same bottom right-hand corner of that Stoke City back of the net. That, again, in front of the Rookery, 2-0 Watford, and that was basically your game there. Stoke City offered very little after that. Watford went forward, could have had another chance or so, but it was a rather pedestrian game, generally speaking, when the first half ended and the second half began. And it really was two teams, two mid-table teams going through the motions. But at least what Watford did in this game was not blow a 2-0 lead. They exercised the fundamentals of football, played a very, I think, intelligent and smart game in the second half, were able to get the game management under control, and the defense actually stabilized a bit more. There were further substitutions. I thought Chris Wilder did a good job of playing more of the youth from the academy. Jack Greaves got on the pitch for the second time in this first team campaign. And also, you may remember, of course, the likes of Adrian Blake. Nice to see him on the pitch, although Adrian Blake is likely to be going elsewhere now that the season's over, because he rejected a contract from Watford. I expect that he'll be either overseas somewhere, or he might find himself at Tottenham Hotspur or elsewhere, looking to get away from how things have gone at Watford. Adrian Blake deserves that chance, although would love to have him still here at Watford next season. And then we also saw the likes of other players who I think, look, there's some players at Watford who are hungry to play these games. And I really do wish, and maybe a nitpick here from yours truly, but I do wish that Chris Wilder had brought those players on a little bit earlier in this game, even if the game was at 0-0 at the time. They should have been brought in earlier, but Chris Wilder brought these players in once the game was established as a 2-0 game, because it wasn't until the 84th or 85th minute when both Jack Grieve and Adrian Blake came into this game. I would have loved to see them come in earlier than that. But again, Chris Wilder obviously wanted to finish on a high note, and of course the team followed suit. Chris Wilder, I thought, he did an adequate job. He did an adequate job here, given what he was given these last 11 games. And yes, they lost more games than they had a right to. But look, if you don't play well, you are expected to lose these games. Watford this season just did not put forth the kind of effort that you'd expect from this men's team, that you would expect that you can live with here in terms of the way they performed. But at least in this game, especially the second half, they came to play the game differently. And those substitutions by Chris Wilder did make a big difference, because, again, it sparked the team into life. There was more open space on the pitch. And as a result, those areas through the middle and on the right side is where Watford got more joy. In fact, they were sneak previewing that in the first half of the game, because down that right side, they were quite effective. Ryan Andrews had another very good game, but Imran Louza is the youorns man of the match. In this, the final game of the Watford men's season, a thoroughly disappointing and awful and agonizing season, a season of frustration and failure. But again, at least on this day, Watford pick up 3 points. They finish 11th. They finish on 63 points, and they finish with 16 wins. So their final record for this season, the 22-23 championship campaign, finished 16 wins, 15 draws, 15 losses. And that is how Watford ended up, the men's team ended up, the first team ended up in this championship season. Watford get the win. They shut out Stoke. They do the double over Stoke, 4-0 and 2-0. And they do at least finish with that 3 points to end what has been a brutally awful season. We only can hope that these next few months will bring a lot more of a unified look at what happens on that pitch, and also a lot of lessons that the club at large needs to learn, particularly as to how it engages with the Watford fan base, because it has been absolutely atrocious these last few seasons, the way that the club has behaved toward the fan base. You would have thought that the fans themselves were somehow prisoners of war. In fact, prisoners of war don't get treated the way that Watford fans have been treated this season by this club. And it really is an abomination and a disgrace. Getting fans ejected from the stadium for really no real reason at all. Confiscating Watford fans' signs that express disapproval about the owner, signs that aren't rude or contain any swear words, refusing to seat people who are Watford fans in an enclosure, the family stand, the Anne Swanson family stand, a stand that has a load of empty seats. Things like this. Someone told me today, another Watford supporter told me today, that he had his banner confiscated that said Pozzo out on it. I mean, this club now is behaving like something out of the 1930s, and the way it deals with people in such a thuggish manner. It really is something that I've had enough of. And the club has got to start behaving like a family club and change its ways and stop treating the fans as if they're enemy soldiers. It's really poor. And this club has a long way to go to regain the reputation of being a family club, because right now it's behaving like something out of the, well, I've made my point. Watford win the game 2-0, and that's the happier memory that I will carry away. I also carry away what the women's team has done this season, and there's still some work to do. They finish as Southern Premier Division champions with their terrific performance against Billericay Town and getting the job done there. But in a couple of weeks' time, they've got that playoff game, of course, against the very team that beat them in the FA WNL Cup final. just a few Sundays ago. That would be Nottingham Forest. And Watford, I think, are going to have the last laugh on May the 20th. This has been the YouOrns 10-minute take.